They wanted Anna Marie's to do more than just stand up in front of people and talk about domestic violence and the needs and the issues. So for 6 years, I have been talking to church groups, sometimes doing students in the criminal justice, going to be police officers and probation officers about domestic violence. I was talking to Rasmussen College in St. Cloud and St. Cloud State University and St. John's and St. Ben's and the Tech College, and I was talking to students about healthy relationships and dating violence and what that all looked like. And the board of directors said, we need to get broader than that. We need to get more people engaged in stopping violence, and we need to investigate how we're going to do that. Luckily, with all of those colleges that we have up our way, and business owners, and faith communities, and we're a medical hub, and you know, we've got a lot of expertise up our way. And fortunately, our executive director, Maxine Barnett, who just retired after 33 years, knew a lot of people. And so Maxine called me into her office and she said, okay, Deb, this is what we're looking at. This is what we've been charged with by our board of directors. And she called in a couple of people that she knew. One was a grant writer, and the other one was in education, Dr. Patricia Welter. And we called in someone from the Community Foundation. And we started looking for ways that we could possibly get some dollars to start this whole process. Luckily, Bremer Foundation was really into the big civic engagement push. We wrote a grant, got the grant, and that's how it all started. That's how it all started. It was just starting with our little group deciding to do something, getting some dollars behind it to support it, and then moving forward. So what we did is we gathered a bigger advisory committee. The advisory committee was very diverse. We knew that we didn't want to do things the way we had always done them. So we invited people from, of course, faith community. We invited business people. We had someone on the committee that was with the St. Cloud City Council. We had educators. We had faith community. We had every different division that we could possibly think of. And that is key number one. Don't necessarily invite people that have always been involved in your issue. It's okay to have some, of course, that you've worked with before that have, you know, some idea of violence, that sort of thing. But get new faces around the table. And it needs to be, at this point, it needs to be a fairly large table. You want a lot of ideas. You want a lot of ideas going forward. So, with the funding that we asked for 2 consultants to submit their proposals. The first consultant we picked did a telephone survey to find out what the community was thinking about, this was specifically relationship violence. What surprised us was when the results came in is a lot of people, 82% of those that were phoned, thought that relationship violence was a big problem in our area. 72% thought that teen dating violence was, you know, a problem in our area. And there were some other things, you know, we asked, you know, do you know if there's any domestic violence, you know, programs in the area? And the majority of people knew there was something, but they didn't quite know our name, or they were using the former name we had when we first started, which was Golden House, you know, that sort of thing. But that's okay. They knew there was a resource in the community, and that's that awareness, that first step. So what that told us is that, hey, this is on people's minds, this whole violence kind of thing. Let's see. So, and then we surveyed our partners, our key stakeholders, those that we collaborate with all the time. We asked them, how do you think we're doing? This was just kind of a way to get a baseline, So, top of mind awareness, familiarity, awareness of domestic violence. Okay, those were like the main issues, the questions around. Okay, so the second consultant worked with us on a strategic plan. That's the time when the stickies went all the way around the room. And we knew that we needed to focus, or things were just going to be all over. I'm a left-brainer, Max is a right-brainer, and we definitely tried to divvy up the advisory committee, those that we invited to be on our committee. We tried to get a really nice mix. Myers-Briggs would have been very happy with us. But, so we took a look at the survey. We did the wish list thing all around the room, and we came up with a vision. Pretty doggone simple. That we just wanted a community committed to healthy relationships, where relationships that are healthy and vibrant would become the norm, would be considered the norm. We wanted communities to also hold perpetrators accountable. And by perpetrators, we were now getting into the broader issue. We were now getting into something beyond domestic violence. The idea that came out of all of our planning is that, you know, if we start talking about not just domestic violence or relationship violence, but if we take that message broader, if we start talking about how people are treating each other in the grocery line or at the gas station, or neighbors, you know, how we're treating, you know, just each other in general, it's going to trickle down. Now, trickle-down theory doesn't work in economics, but we are hoping that it will work in this situation. If you remember, some of you will remember, back in the 60s when they started the anti-smoking campaigns, people said it's not going to work. Smoking is so ingrained in our culture, people weren't believing the health reports that were coming out. But pretty soon you started seeing, like, Tony Curtis doing commercials for it. And pretty soon, you know, there were other celebrity types doing commercials for it. And then there were the billboards. And then you went to the doctor and you were given a bunch of information on it. And then pharmaceuticals got involved and they started giving you patches and gum. And then pretty soon the kids were coming home and saying, Mommy, Daddy, stop smoking, you're gonna die. That smells bad. That message came from more than just the doctor. That message came from the whole thing and has changed. Now, it's still a problem. I'm not saying it's all gone away. All I know is I see a whole heck of a lot less smoking when I go to like family reunions than I did growing up as a child. That was the idea that we were going to steal from. Is that if we could start defining our community, into different sectors and get those sectors to start saying the same message of healthy relationships, we might just be able to make a difference. So we wanted this whole intentional. We wanted this to be intentional. We wanted people to not just be aware of it, but to start acting on it. And so connectivity, was definitely one of them between the communities. We wanted to educate them and create that climate and improve communication and information with our partners too. Now these were our objectives. If in your groups, you may have different objectives, totally. These are just what we did with Connect. They worked up in central Minnesota. A lot of people, when you say cultures, they think maybe, okay, we've got the German culture and the Swedish culture, and we've got the East African culture, and we've got the Russian culture, and we've got, okay. They don't realize that each community has their own culture, their way of thinking, the way of doing. Northern Minnesota is not like southern Minnesota. The Twin Cities area, not so much like central Minnesota. Although it's getting there, it's getting there. And we wanted to definitely reach services of healthy relationships, family violence, that sort of thing, to some of the ethnic groups that were coming into the St. Cloud area. Somali and Latino. Asian had been a couple of decades earlier, but definitely the Latino and the Somali we wanted to reach. Okay. To build family-free, violence-free families and communities, we decided that we were going to target businesses, we were going to target the faith communities that we have, and now we are not quite as diverse up in Stearns County, in the St. Cloud area, as you are down in the Twin Cities. We are seeing more Muslim, of course, but basically Christianity and Muslim would be the top two. But anyway, but the faith communities, there's all sorts of different denominations within the Christianity, let me tell you. Okay, our educational institutions, which I had mentioned all of those schools that we have in the area, healthcare, and government or nonprofits. We then worked on, okay, what do we want for key messages? What, no matter where we go within those different categories of our community, what are our key messages that we want to center everything that we do around? And the first one had to be respect. I think you don't have to look very far to realize that respect is pretty much in the toilet right now. People are not respecting other people's ideas. They're not respecting them as human beings, just as, that you have basic ways of treating people in a respectful manner. Everyone has the right to be respected, but that means that everyone has the responsibility to be respectful of others. It is a two-way street. Then there was safety and safe spaces, that everyone has the right to live, work, play in a safe environment, but then again, have the responsibility to make that environment safe for others. And when we were talking safety and safe spaces, it wasn't just physical spaces. It was the communication that we used. Is it safe for me to speak up and express my ideas at a council meeting or at the neighborhood association or in my leadership team meeting or in the workplace? Is it safe? Is it safe for me to speak up, or do I have to worry about bullies, workplace bullies? The interconnectedness, this one I like. How many of you have seen the movie Crash? Oh, please, come on. Thank you. Excellent movie to prove this point, that our words and our actions are interconnected with everybody in the community. Okay? The ripple effect. My tone of voice, my words, my actions will affect someone, and that in turn will affect how they respond to someone else. So if I'm driving down Division Street in St. Cloud, how many of you have driven down Division Street in St. Cloud? You know what I'm talking about. Okay. Well, I have to do it most every morning. So I'm driving down Division Street and somebody cuts me off or runs a red light and almost T-bones me or whatever. And I get to the office and I am in a foul mood. And I throw my purse or, briefcase on the chair and slam the file drawer or whatever. That is, something like that, a lot of people don't think is violent. But when we go out and we do training, we have this great exercise that we call threshold for violence. I come up with scenarios that I think maybe the business or the church may experience. Come up with these little stories, little scenarios. And then we have the people that are attending ring that. And it is amazing. It is amazing to see the differences in what people feel is violence when we're talking words and actions that hurt. I had done the St. Cloud Hospital Centra Care Behavioral Health. I had done, I was going to do 3 trainings, but we had a snowstorm, so it was 2 trainings. But here, I've got your psychotherapists, I've got your counselors, you would think, everybody is going to be on the same page when it comes to, how violent something like that would be. The little scenario with the office manager not doing something that they were supposed to do. No. They were all over the board. Some got very violent, some didn't, we're talking 8s and 9s. And other people went, well, that's not violent at all. Yikes. And it becomes very obvious then to the group that, oh, I guess I might not be perceived as this wonderful, warm, caring person. And it's not so much how they treat their clients, because we were talking about how they treat each other, the interconnectedness. Because you cannot tell your customers or your congregation or your employees, clients, residents one thing, and then demonstrate another. So that's the whole thing. If a collaboration starts forming, what you need to do is make sure that within your own organizations you are doing these things too. In other words, walk the walk and talk the talk. Okay. And then finally, empowerment. Making every community and every department within the community a safe place to speak up when things go right, speak up when things go wrong, be part of something. If you don't feel like you're part of something, you're not going to change. You're not going to change. Okay, so we hired a local marketing firm. They developed the name and the logo. I did go, well, our advisory committee and Max wanted me to, it's actually a registered trademark. It's not that difficult to do. There's a thing called LegalZoom. They walk you right through it. You throw some money at them and you're registered. Okay. Then there were templates that the marketing firm also developed. And you'll see that these are just the different areas that we do. And I just dropped the logo into the materials that I use. It's no big deal. And there will be another one. There will be another one that will be added to this, and it'll be Culture Connect. This past October, using the art of hosting, I was lucky enough to have 3 people who had gone through the training on art of hosting. And we invited individuals who we thought might be very influential within their different communities. So we had Africans, we had people from the Latino community, we had African American and Asian, I think she was Chinese, come. And using the art of hosting, it was like, okay, what works in your community when things need to be changed? How do we go about doing that? And the very first one that we did was a real good connector, and we identified some ways. So we will be adding another one here pretty quick, as soon as I can get Hatling Flint to do that for us. They came up with an elevator speech for us. Again, it becomes very important, especially when you have committee members that are, you know, maybe you've got a business person or you've got someone from another nonprofit. You know, they kind of know about your agency and they've been going to the meetings. But again, it's the similar message that you want them to do. So they came up with the elevator speech. I did not memorize it. But it basically, if somebody says, hey, what is that Quebec thing about? They could kind of refer back to it. Okay, I'm just going to cruise right through here. I throw these things in every once in a while. So, then what we did is, okay, so now we have our vision, we have our mission, we have the direction we're going, we have the people we're going to be targeting. We've got our logo and our name. You know, things are moving right along here. And do you think this all happened in 6 months? 2 years. Remember, we're working with an advisory committee. And you're asking people who are business owners, and you're asking all these people who are very, very busy. We knew this was not going to be one of those things. If it was going to look a whole bunch like everything else that had come before it. Okay, so a lot of the business people said, okay, well, we gotta let the media know what's what. And so we put together a media kit that, you know, had background, had the list of who was on the committee and who they could contact in case, you know, the reporter wanted more information. We had, by that time, developed who we were going to be targeting. We had our key messages and our mission and that sort of thing. And we had already done a couple of trainings. We had come up, it was so wonderful to have Dr. Patricia Welter, PhD in education. She had been a principal at a junior high school for years and years. She had been an educator. So coming up with a curriculum, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how to do that. But so now the media has their thing. Okay, this is good. This is good. Now, how are we going to approach, let's say, a business or a nonprofit or whatever? How are we going to sell the fact that Connect will have someone come in and provide training on the specific needs for the business? How do we sell that? And so we came up with an idea. From one of the reasons for your advisory committee is that they know people. So the business owners know business owners. The nurse who was teaching nursing at St. Benedict's College knew all of course, the facilities and all of that sort of thing. Knew people. and could then get us a foot in the door. So that person who knew, let's say, the business owner, and Max at the time, our executive director, would go just for a half hour, make an appointment, want to tell you about this, want to tell you what we do, get that commitment from up here. If you go to middle management, you've got to get the commitment from the owners or the president of the company or whatever. Now, usually the HR person was in the meeting too. And if the business decided that, yeah, there's something like, yeah, we could use that, yeah, okay. Max would usually come back with the name of the HR person or a branch manager or, you know, a name that the owners had passed off. I would give that person a couple of days and I would call and say, we need to meet. I would go and, well, there were leave behind materials. We started with a pretty extensive packet of materials with history and all of that sort of thing, and decided, maybe not so much, too much reading. So now we basically drop off a couple of the brochures, which are in your packets. By the way, those brochures were designed for us, not by Rasmussen, but by the Minnesota School of Business up in St. Cloud. Some of the students designed that for us. There's another collaboration. It didn't cost us a dime. Okay. So we have leave behind materials, just in case they need to talk about it or go to a board of directors or something like that. After we do the training, the whole idea of keeping connected, or it becomes one of those, oh, I went to the training and I'm all excited, and it doesn't go any further. Okay, you need to keep connected with them. We have a website and we have a Facebook page, and I would encourage all of you to friend me. I always need more friends. And it's just Anna Marie's Connect on Facebook. Friend me. What I do is I post most every work day an article. Sometimes I blog a little bit, like maybe something that I've seen. I go to McDonald's, one of the McDonald's every morning for my coffee, because I'm only supposed to have one cup. It's a big cup. Anyway, and I go to McDonald's and I get my coffee, and one day in front of me was one of those mid-size Hummers, you know, and on the back rear mirror, or windscreen, was those stick figures, you know, that they have like with the family member and the dads. Okay. But this one had the family members like diving for cover, and this big vehicle looking like it was trying to run them over. And it said, I don't care about your stupid stick family. And I just kind of went, I think that's what Connect is trying to kind of fight against. Not fight, that's, you know, work to eliminate that kind of thinking. Yeah, you gotta watch your language, don't you? You know, it's just like during October Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we don't kick off the month. We launch. Okay. But it was that kind of thing. So that morning I went back and I blogged a little bit about that. And kind of said, oh my, is it just me? Am I just this gray-haired old lady that's starting to notice stuff like this? So it's all about, you know, maybe starting to increase some awareness, keeping people connected, hooking them up with a video or an article. It's nothing intrusive, it's once a day. I promise, it's all I've got time for anyway. So, but it's always good to keep connected. You know, especially if there have been like maybe real problems at a business or whatever, you want to make sure, in case they need you to come back and do more, you want to let them know that you can do that. So, what we do is when I have that meeting, hello, when I have that meeting, we do an organizational assessment. Now, that can be very formal, you know, on a form. How much training do you do? What do you do training on? What is the feeling? You know, what kind of management style does your business have? Is it top down, side to side, bottom up, inverted pyramid? You know, give me one of the 4,000 examples in organizational development. You know, how do you do things around here? Are there specific problems? Now, one of the first organizations we did was Coburn's. Coburn's corporate is in St. Cloud. Matter of fact, Mabel, you know that Aunt Mabel label? That's actually my cousin. Anyway, so we did Coburn's. We did 5 of their stores. And when I went in to do the assessment and talk to their HR person, I said, is there any chance I could see your employee handbook? And she was extremely forthcoming. Here it is. I mean, very proud of this. And I've got to tell you, yes, they had a domestic violence policy in their employee handbook. Respect was used on every other page, and it wasn't just for the customer. It was for vendors, it was for supervisors, it was for your coworkers, it was for people out in the community, anybody walking through that door, including the person working alongside of you. It was impressive. So, what did we do? What did we need to talk about? Basically, they needed just communication and conflict resolution. How do we do that in a respectful way? Not having the supervisor be doormats. You know, we're not, you know, it's not all butterflies and ribbons, okay? Not expecting that, but there's a way to discipline and deal with conflict in ways that won't make this other person feel like, you know, like they don't belong. So this is what we came up with for a basic core training. This is what we started with. We developed a curriculum around creating that safe space. What would that look like? And it's going to look different in a workplace over maybe a church. But we have to remember that there's very few places that aren't workplaces. Churches are workplaces. Healthcare facilities are workplaces. Educational facilities are workplaces for the people that we're dealing with. Building open communication, it is amazing. And Anne Marie's used to have a program for court-ordered betterers. And what the overriding thing that we saw there was really rotten communication skills. Did not know how to ask for what they needed without going to the violence right away. We see it in young people. They go to the violence, you know, or the bad language right away. They don't have an idea. So we talk about open communication. Appropriate use of power, huge, huge. Here we start talking about the cultural script that we have here in the United States of America. Our cultural script saying that you gotta be a winner, and to be a winner you have to have dominance over and power over. The ends justify the means, and it's okay to climb up on the backs of other people. Pretty soon violence becomes the norm. Nothing surprises anybody anymore about the way things are done. I mean, you know, and we see that in media, movies, all of that. The Hunger Games. What's up with that? Children killing children. Although I hear in the second one the people do start to uprise a bit. It's like, yeah, I guess maybe I shouldn't, because I haven't read the books and I haven't done the movies. I only know what people have told me, and you're really not supposed to do that. But at my age, I think I have the right to say I'm not going to go there. I don't have to. I don't have to anymore. Yay. Okay, so appropriate use of power. Appropriate use of power is very important in faith communities. Yeah, we do that quite a bit. And then just how to develop those healthy relationships in all aspects of your life. Those were our basic. At this point, does anybody have any questions? We started training in 2008. Now, this is 2.5, close to 3 years from the time we wrote the grant to the time we did our first training. Holy moly Rocky. It was driving me crazy. I'm left-brainer. Let's get this thing on the road. Let's keep going. But I was working with a lot of right-brainers, and Max told me, Deb, I know you're going to want to do all of the work, but don't do it. Don't do it. Let your committee do it. So I pulled back. And it did take longer, but I think it was probably a much better project in the long run. Okay? So, do you want me to go through real quick the basic? Yeah? Yeah, okay, I'm gonna whip through these pretty fast. They are in your PowerPoint, you can revisit them. I'm just gonna give you a flavor of the basic four. From the basic four, we kind of developed them in a module situation, so we can pick and pull and choose depending on what, let's say, the company needs. What we didn't want this to be was a cookie cutter, waltz in, do your presentation, and then walk out again. You know, kind of like those that you get from some of the big companies, you know. I don't know, I'm trying to think of some of them, Paget, and, you know, you pay $4.95 for a day and you go in and that sort of thing. I don't know if you know this or not, but everything that the person up top, even though it sounds very conversational, it's memorized. It's been developed by psychologists for the greatest impact. Crazy. Okay, so creating a safe space. We talked about what we expect that to look like and who it affects. This is where it becomes important to have the upper power tier realize that they've got to model this behavior too. Things can be done. I have had feedback that it made sense in one department, and they were really doing it where another department wasn't doing it. So we're all aspects. It's more than physical space. Here we start talking a little bit about communication. That your tone, your attitude has to be open, and you don't have to like the other person. We're not saying that you have to like everybody and be one of those sickening sweet people, but you do have to be able to work with them. You do have to be able to work with them, and you have to be able to set boundaries and limits. It has to be okay to say, no, Max, I can't take on another project. You know, what else would I get rid of in order for me to do this? It's got to be okay to say that. How am I going to fit this in? How am I going to fit it in? And that sense of belongingness, there's been a lot of research done on it. If a person doesn't feel like they belong, they're not going to change their behavior. They're not going to accept something. So if you have somebody that, you know, you've gone out and you're talking to them, you're doing the training, oh God, no, it's just another training, and now I can't tell my employees what they're going to be able to do, and, you know, I mean, hey, I work for Anderson Trucking, and there's no way that, you know, I mean, I've got to be on top of these people because doggone it. There is a way of dealing with those attitudes of, I don't want to, I really don't. First of all, the person probably doesn't feel like they belong. And they might be a little narcissistic too. But anyway, so a safe space, there are road signs that are going to close things down, minimizing. Okay. I'd love to do your job, but I got my own stuff to do. So in other words, my problem is more important than your problem. You minimize, making the other person feel like, oh, I guess my job isn't all that important. Posturing, look at me, sometimes that can be called complaining, no, bragging by complaining. I think we all know people that do that. And then protecting, that's the working in silos. That's the only giving out certain communication because you want to keep it for yourself, because if you let somebody else know, then they'll know how to do it, and then I might get fired. Okay. The posturing, I am more important. But on the other hand, kind of complete flip-flop would be that you commend people. You thank them, you give them credit where credit's due. The people who are most likely to do well in a business are the people that are willing to share the credit. People are going to want to work with you if you do that. So as you form your collaborations, one cannot posture or position themselves to be more important. Everybody around the table is important. You want to remind people, you know, about the fact that this is a safe place. If you see something that's wrong, speak up. It's okay. There will not be retaliation. And then to demonstrate that, maybe through the use of posters, or it might be part of the evaluation if we're talking the workplace here. Okay. And then, you know, we do exercises throughout where we're asking them to actually define. Now, when I have the luxury of being able to come back 2, 3, 4, 5 times for one group, I can grab these up and then I can consolidate them and find the trends. In communications, we talk a lot about listening and those active listening skills. Good old Stephen Covey, you know, listen first with the intent to understand, then to be understood. Listen first to understand. And of course, you know, this is the ignoring, the pretending, the selective listening that I do with my sisters whenever they're talking. I expect them to say certain things. And so if they happen to say that, I go, there they go again. There they go again. But haven't heard anything leading up to that point, or maybe even after that point. That we want to head towards attentive and empathic. Attentive where you're actually putting some energy into this listening, and empathic where you try to understand where the person's coming from. The nonverbals, yeah. The nonverbals, the crossed arms, the slouching, all of that, you know, you don't have to study communication to know when someone's getting defensive. You know, you don't have to be one of those people on Criminal Minds. And I just throw him in there because I think he makes me happy. I have no idea who he is. Anyway, the threshold for violence, I did talk a little bit about that. It's a great exercise that it doesn't take too much. You know, you just kind of figure out, you know, what this business might run into, and then come up with some scenarios, or if it's a church or something. To close spaces, we talk a lot about how spaces are closed off. You may say you've got an open door policy, and yet everything about you, the fact that maybe you don't listen, you ignore the person when they come to your door, you're never around, you're always canceling one-on-one meetings. It can be very uncivil. It can be a very uncivil way of dealing. The yelling, that kind of thing. We talk about all of these and what they may mean and what they may look like. And then expanding. I used to have a picture of people drinking champagne, but okay. That the open communication is what you go for, that people are included. And you work in revamping how your organization is set up. We have relationship focused, and then, because especially in business, and then we have the task focus. Again, these are all of your slides. But I wanted to give you an idea. Oh, and that's, one of the real basic things. If they don't already have rules for operating their meetings, it's a good start for communication. It gives people permission to say, you know, Ralph, you rolled your eyes at me again when I brought up the issue of. That makes me feel like you don't care or you think it's not important for. Okay, appropriate use of power. Spider. Yeah, I killed it. He looks so pathetic. Anyway, yeah, inappropriate use of power here. Little overboard. But sometimes we do this, don't we? The littlest things, and we jump on it, and we jump on it. Okay. Judith E. Glaser, a lot of what we came up with, we used from her book, Creating We. And she had this great thing that we use when we're talking about the culture, that we have, you know, to when you have to be dominant, and so we fuse that with force and dominance in our culture. Okay, we asked them how they define power, or how society might define power. This is another one of those awareness things. It's adversarial. It leads to acceptance of violence against those less powerful, and it increases our standard of violence. And just you know, once again, you all have probably read enough books on leadership and training, that sort of thing. What you're going to want to do is, if you would decide, well, with any of the trainings that you would do, you would want to tailor them as much as possible. We talk about the internal and external locus of control, where do you feel like you're in charge, or do you think the world is in charge of what you do? Okay. And finally, we want to establish a culture where we're going to have shared goals and knowledge, and people can participate. That's me. In unhealthy cultures, people aren't communicating, they're not asking for help. You're going to have physical, you know, and I'm sure Dave can talk about the physical effects of stress that comes through. They'll turn inward. I'm okay. You got a problem. You know, they may revisit stuff that happened a long time ago, and they just won't let it go. Right? Okay. Fear and reactivity. That's just one person's idea of what a respectful workplace looks like. Characteristics. workplace bullying or incivility in the workplace. We have developed a course, one specifically on domestic violence. Many workplaces want that specific. Okay, so I'm on time, right? There we go. She's doing this. Okay, does anyone have any questions in the last minute before your break? Yeah.
What was the toughest group for you to get together with? What was the toughest level of acceptance that came?
Healthcare.
Healthcare?
Healthcare. First of all, you got doctors, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to get them around a table or not. They are the ones that need the appropriate use of power module if you're talking to the nurses and the other staff. It's because they're so busy, and whether it's a workplace or whatever, carving out the time to let your branch managers or let your nursing staff free for an hour, hour and a half, a couple months in a row. That's a lot of time. And so in the workplace, that can be an issue too. But it's been healthcare that we have tried to fight tooth and claw. I think a lot of times people think that those in healthcare don't need training on respectful interaction and compassion, that sort of thing. Because, especially nurses, they give it all the time. They give it to their patients all the time. How are they treating everybody else? How are they treating the food staff, the aides, the secretarial staff? That's the kind of thing that we're going for. When we go into educational facilities, we go in to talk to the faculty and staff. Not the students. We've got a whole other program for that. Not the students. We're after the faculty and staff. When I went into Stearns County Community Corrections, probation officers, all of that sort of thing, they know how to interact with their clients. How are they treating each other? How's the communication? Bottom up, top down, side to side. So that's what we focused on there. The only thing I would say is whatever you develop, pull from your advisory committee, pull the expertise. And if you have a bunch of different groups that are already doing training, well, cluster that, become a clearinghouse. Make sure you send the experts in the area to different things. You don't have to recreate the wheel, just use what you have. Okay.
One last question. Do you do a presentation at different places, like organization with all?
If you have her speak in the microphone.
My question is that do you do presentation to an organizations or health clinics? I think this is wonderful.
Yes, we do. And I go there. I don't ask them to come to me. I go to the business. I go to the clinic. All they have to do is provide me a room and a PowerPoint,
That's what I do.
get the people